Ukrainian Defense Forces offensive in 2023, success or failure. Most think in certain, understandable categories, without going beyond their boundaries. Few consider the result of the summer offensive from a slightly different perspective than simply liberating territories. The main category of such thinking is the measurement of Ukraine's achievements in liberated square kilometers, villages and towns. In reality, the assessment of achievements may include other components, such as heights, strongholds, transportation hubs, and various milestones. And there is another very important category, enemy casualties. From June through November 2023, the enemy lost nearly 122,000 personnel, 1,760 tanks, 2,894 armored fighting vehicles, 4,457 barrel artillery, 337 MLRS, 269 air defense systems, 4,160 vehicles and 679 special vehicles. During this period, Russian forces suffered their heaviest casualties since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Those who view the success of the offensive solely in square kilometers usually fail to draw parallels with what would have awaited Ukraine had the Ukrainians not launched the operation in the summer. If the AFU had not attacked, the Russian forces would have had the opportunity to accumulate resources, restore the combat effectiveness of units, fully staff them and form new ones. As of today, the Russian grouping in Ukraine is up to 450,000 personnel. Without the active offensive campaign of the AFU, this figure would now be more than 550,000, which would make it much easier for the Russian command not only to defend but also to attack. Russia's military-industrial complex has been working for the last 6 months to constantly compensate for losses, and has not allowed the enemy to accumulate equipment. Moreover, the Ukrainian offensive forced the Russians to use up their artillery ammunition reserves, depleting them completely. It was during the summer of 2023 that Iranian munitions were first identified in the enemy's arsenal. By the end of summer, Russia intensified the acquisition of ammunition from North Korea, indicating a critical situation for the adversary with proportional supplies of ammunition to the combat zone. The summer offensive was a forced measure. If it had not been launched by Ukrainian troops, Russian troops would have been able to accumulate strike capabilities so that they could conduct offensive operations simultaneously in several directions. In turn, the AFU not only tied down enemy forces in the Zaporizhia region, but also created temporary logistical confusion and the effect of Russian units constantly roaming from one group of troops to another to reinforce one or another bridgehead. It is true that these actions did not result in the large-scale liberation of the territories that many had hoped, but it was they that allowed the serious damage and depletion of the enemy, forcing it to significantly limit its offensive ambitions, and in general reducing the effectiveness of any offensive in any direction that Russian troops are trying to conduct. So I categorically disagree with the statement that the summer offensive was a complete failure. Yes, it uncovered a number of problems and forced a change in the general tactics of combat operations. But at the same time, this campaign performed another function perfectly, the exhaustion of the enemy, and this tendency was maintained in winter as well. In general, the concept of exhausting the enemy may become the main concept in the new phase of warfare, from which we are moving into 2024.